Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildebrand. I am joined, as always, by my good friend over there in New York City, a gentleman by the name of Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
I am fantastic, Ty. I am glad you asked. I have my tea. My bladder is empty. I am fully optimized for high-level podcasting, at least for us.
Did you feel at all let down in Week 12? Because we've had so many big weeks of college football. To have a week like Week 12 where there weren't many surprises. We had K-State beating Oklahoma State, which we'll talk about. We had... I guess Washington on the ropes against Utah. UCLA playing defense was a bit of a surprise, but beyond that, not a whole lot in the way of wrinkles in the college football world.
Then obviously you didn't see Oregon complete a number of passes down the field, because that is new and exciting and the choice of a fresh generation, Ty.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Michigan, Wisconsin early on, and there was certainly some drama for a good chunk of that game. And, you know, Virginia put a scare into Miami. There wasn't anything that I think flipped the college football landscape around and on itself, but I thought there was enough in the way of entertainment and tension and whatever the hell Kansas State almost lost to Oklahoma State that I was entertained, and I had a fantastic Saturday, Ty.
It was a low-key Saturday, but a fun Saturday. If nothing else, we had college football and crazy weather. We need to add crazy weather, a bunch of monsoon games taking place around college football, so bad in Tennessee that not only did the rain cause the referees' mics to malfunction, the winds were so strong that part of the Neyland Stadium scoreboard blew off and hit a fan.
And I think the uprights, the goalposts...
Oh, they were leaning before the game?
Yeah, like 45 degrees. There was a level on the crossbar. We had it was a good crossbar day because there was a big fat doink in Cal Stanford.
Yeah, right.
It was a good, weird day. And yeah, the weather stuff, when I flipped over, I think Fox had the Michigan State-Maryland game. It looked like an aggressive Haley snowstorm. And it looks so good in HD, Ty. It's probably hell if you're there. Although I did see Michigan State people sticking out their tongues. So there's that.
Sure.
Good weather day. Real strong weather day.
Good weather day to be at home watching in HD. How about that?
Yeah, Idaho State, the field was covered.
Yeah.
I don't remember who they were playing. North Dakota State, I think.
Yeah.
It was fun. I'm with it.
All right, well, let's get rolling the way we always do here on the show. Let's tap into your Week 12 voice messages at 408-VERBAL1. We like to call them the Reverbs. Have a listen.
Punt, field goal, turnover on down, end of game. What a thrilling Big Ten matchup.
This is Nick calling in from Phoenix, Arizona.
Hey guys, this is Shiner Ryan.
Hi, it's Ken from Maryland.
This is Marcelo from Austin, Texas.
This is Matt and Courtney from San Francisco. We used our window of opportunity today to sleep until 10:30 a.m. this morning. We missed nothing.
I'm watching my Nittany Lions crush the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and I'm going to party like it's 1994. All right.
Just watching my Northwestern Wildcats take it to Minnesota, well on their way to their first 6-game win streak since 1996.
Purdue's Bullholds now rest in the Old Oaken Bucket game. It just means more. Go Boilers.
I would just like to say that good teams win, but great teams cover the spread, and that's what Illinois did this week at Ohio State. ILL.
I have a in-law that I have to buy a Christmas present for. They are Wolverines fans. A box of Kleenexes would be a good choice.
Tanner Lee looked like he was actually back at the Manning Passing Academy. Too bad they were down 42-10 when he showed up.
When I just finished watching what I thought was an improved Red Raiders team that failed to score a single touchdown against TCU. And I'm pretty sure Cliff is done. And a piece of me just died as I said that.
Just checking in after the Longhorns got bowl eligible. How about that? And how gruesome was that injury to Will Greer? Holy cow.
Even during a win, playing Navy,
is like being bled out from 100,000 paper cuts.
I'm confused. Does the winner of the North Carolina State Wake Forest game automatically get an SEC job?
This is Brett Bielema. Does anyone smell bacon frying?
Short time verballer, first time reverber, and Georgia is back, baby. Kentucky just got murdered.
Watching FAU run one up against the second place team in the division, can't help but think the hilarious inevitability that Lane Kiffin is going to be the next head coach at the University of Florida. It's going to be awesome.
My Devils are 6-6, and the Ducks just beat our rivals. Bowl eligible. I think Dan and I are riding the same chance to play in the newly anointed Dream-style stadium for the Gildan Underwear New Mexico Bowl, baby!
Walk-on USC punter Reed Budrovich hit that guy so hard I think he lost his shoes.
I'm calling about the Army rushing attack and 500 yards in a losing effort.
Life is pretty good. Tailgated with some friends today. The Rams won on senior day, and the girl I really like, I think, likes me back. So, pretty good day. Hopefully, y'all had the same.
Just calling to congratulate my 10-1 Kennesaw State Owls for winning the Big South Championship and going to the upset playoffs for the first time in the third year of their existence.
I am Pac-12 after darking on the East Coast, and I'm glad I stayed up because this kind of boring college football day just got pretty freaking amazing at 10 minutes to 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast.
Alrighty, there you have it. Your Week 12 Reverbs. Thank you, as always, to everyone who called in. Again, 408-VERBAL-1. That's 408-837-2251. Our boy Taylor cutting those up, giving us a nice little mishmash of the fan reaction to Week 12 in the world of college football. So look, I'm not sure exactly how we want to structure the show today, because typically what I'll do is I'll pull out all the big games, all the headlining games that maybe we addressed on our Wednesday preview, some of the games that came as a bit of a surprise. This week, where we didn't have a whole lot of surprises, do you just want to go conference by conference through this and sort of hash it all out?
Yeah, we can do that. I know that on Wednesday we talked, and I think both of us said there's no way Boise State and Fresno State will play 2 consecutive weeks. Well, if we're going to deep dive the Mountain West to start, I've got some bad news. Because, man, are we in for some Boise State, Fresno State action? Why don't we start with the Big Ten? How about that?
Let's do that. Let's start with the Big Ten. The marquee game in the Big Ten was Wisconsin at home against Michigan. And you never would have guessed it, Dan. This was exactly the kind of game we expected. Exactly the kind of game. I texted you at one point that a large swath of this football game was borderline unwatchable. Is that fair to say?
I would say so. And I don't know if you have the Dvorak ready. I'm not quite ready to be there. Do you?
I do have it at the ready if you're
okay, because we got a lot of tweets about this. I guess people really like dramatic punt and turnover on downs readings. Yeah, it was not fantastic. You had a punt return touchdown early. Michigan drove in the second quarter, tied at 7, but it was a lot of stalling and fit and starting offense, whatever. The Brandon Peters injury was incredibly unfortunate, and I know Michigan fans were, capital O outraged that it was a dirty hit. I didn't see it as... See, to me, dirty hits we are trying to take this guy out of the game, and we are celebrating it. And it was a late hit, and he was driven to the ground, I think, excessively. But to me, it did not feel like there was a bounty on Brandon Peters.
Well, there was a bounty on Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
that was entirely possible.
That was a legitimate dirty hit.
Yes. Big picture, it was interesting to me that around that time, Wisconsin started to get its act together. They called a timeout. I tweeted this, that Wisconsin leading up to that point had not done anything pretty much, and Alex Hornibrook had struggled to throw the ball and connect downfield. They call a timeout, and it was almost like there was just a shift change in a hockey game. Right. There was a package inserted. I now understand how that sounds upon hearing myself, but that there was Paul Chris sent out, okay, now let's do offense. And Jonathan Taylor started running all over Michigan's defense. Alex Hornibrook threaded a bunch of needles and threw a couple nice passes, one of which went into the end zone for 7 points. And ultimately, Wisconsin shifted away and got a nice win to join the Iowa win, 24-10 Badgers.
24-10 Badgers was your final score. I came away from this game feeling like Wisconsin's defense is really good.
Yep.
Like they were doubling down on the run. It was clear that they were forcing Michigan to beat them through the air. And to Michigan's credit, they did get a couple big plays through the air, including one that I think was a touchdown after the replay. I know they called it incomplete.
Man, it was real close. It looked like
it was bang, bang. It was close. I thought he got his foot down. I thought Brandon Peters did okay before he got creamed and got carted off. I hope he's okay. So, more of what we expected in this football game. We know Michigan's not quite ready for prime time. The offense has been a work in progress. The quarterback position, a work in progress. They held their own for a while, but eventually, like you said, a shift change. Wisconsin does pull away. You're also right to say that Alex Hornibrook had a little bit of trouble connecting downfield, but he did make some really big throws in tight windows. Still had the pick. Got to get rid of those picks.
Can I ask you a question to follow things up?
Yeah,
I guess it would be a two-part question. One, does this significantly or on any level change your opinion of Wisconsin and their right to a top 4 spot after looking in from the outside last week?
Well, right to a top 4 spot is relative. I've never been fully sold on Wisconsin's offense. Their defense is legit.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about that. Defense legit. I'm still not sure how I feel about them against a better team, a team better than Michigan. Perhaps we'll find that out in 2 weeks in the Big Ten championship game. But for now, it doesn't really change my opinion too much of Wisconsin. They just need to keep winning.
Second part of the question, does it change your opinion of Michigan, who came into the game as an underdog on the road and lost as an underdog on the road? And it appears if they lose to Ohio State, which looks likely, that they will fall to 5-4, finish the season 8-4. That seems like a likely outcome. But it was going into the season, everybody sort of came in saying, well, yeah, 8-4, 9-3, if things break a couple ways, 10-2. But it feels like it's within the standard deviation of what the expectations were. I know there's going to be disappointment, Wilton Spate's injury, a brand new defense, essentially. Is there room to grow dramatically concerned about the long-term future of Michigan football if they indeed finish 4th now in the Big Ten East and offensively seem at best okay, pretty good, and at worst sort of in a rut and stubbornly boring?
No, I don't think so. They've recruited well.
That's the thing, though, relative to what the talent is on hand. And I know that they had injuries at receiver this year, but they
lost so much from a year ago. This is always going to be a quasi rebuilding year. So no, I don't have any concerns long term. They're going to be fine.
Okay. I mean, Ohio State year over year loses a ton, but they recruit certainly on a different level. And, Urban Meyer's certainly been there longer.
They're starting from a different point, though. Michigan just hired a new coach a couple of years ago. You got to give him a chance to get in there, get his guys in there, fully install his system. They still need a quarterback. The quarterback's been a problem for Michigan football. They need to get a quarterback that they can rely on week in, week out, then they'll be fine.
I would strongly consider going in a new offensive direction.
Okay. All right.
To me, like the offensive line play, you can win with average offensive line play if you're a little bit more creative and you play with tempo or something like that. And I think there's a stubborn nature to the Harbaugh-Drevno offensive partnership.
That may be true. I'm not concerned yet. Let's move on. We got to move on. We got a bunch of games to talk about here. Big Ten elsewhere. Penn State 56, Nebraska 44. Horrible weather in State College, as really was the case around college football. Cold and rainy. I have a question about Joe Moorhead's attire in this football game. Did you watch any of this game?
It was on mute on one of the TVs, and I watched extended highlights this morning. So I saw a good chunk of it, but it was, 42-10, and I started paying less attention.
It was 42-10 at halftime. Nebraska obviously came back in garbage time when Penn State was on autopilot. But Joe Moorhead, you'd have to believe, has access to Nike's entire arsenal of Penn State paraphernalia.
Okay.
On a cold, rainy day in State College, he decides to go with the gray cotton sweatshirt.
Questionable. Got to get a shell.
He looked like he was soaked the entire football game, and he didn't change at half.
Yeah. Maybe it worked for him. They score 42 points in the first half. It's sort of a Gary Patterson situation. Change if it's not working, but you got to roll if it is.
Our friend Bruce Feldman said at halftime of the broadcast it was about as good as he'd seen Penn State's offense look all year. The counterpoint would be that it was against Nebraska. Don't want to split hairs, but whatever. Saquon Barkley, congratulations. He scored his 37th, 38th, and 39th career touchdowns. The 39th broke the school record previously held by Lydell Mitchell.
I came away from this game, from what I saw, very impressed with the return of Saquon Barkley, and even more so about how Trace McSorley looked. He looked confident. He spread the ball around to a number of receivers. I saw Mike Gesicki had it was like a fade type route, but he was stepping into his throws. I came away thinking, okay, Trace McSorley has a bit of mojo back. And yes, it was against, I almost just called him Brady Diaco because the Hail Mary defensive coordinator hired to save a job. The parallels aren't great, but yeah, the Nebraska defense is trash.
All right. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we had Ohio State 52-14 over Illinois. We had Michigan State 17-7 over Maryland. Northwestern 39-0 over Minnesota.
Woo!
Indiana 41-0 over Rutgers. And finally, Purdue. Nice win for Purdue, 24-15 over the Iowa Hawkeyes. A nice road win for the Purdue Boilermakers.
I'm going to throw a magnifying glass on Northwestern because 39-0 against even an average or slightly below average Minnesota team, however you think of the Gophers, that's friggin' ridiculous. They held Minnesota to 1 of 11 on third down. Justin Jackson had a record-setting day career-wise. He had 166 on the ground. Clayton Thorson was fine, threw a couple touchdown passes. Demery Croft, the Minnesota quarterback, 2 of 11 for 43 yards.
Nice. Woo. That's rough.
It looks like the long throw was 36 yards. So,
okay.
Man, good for Northwestern. We've talked about it.
The quiet march towards 9 wins continues for the Wildcats.
Absolutely. So, really nice win for them. And as a result of Purdue beating Iowa and Indiana laying the wood against Rutgers, the battle for the old Oaken Bucket tie.
That's right.
Is for bowl eligibility.
You know it.
Here we go.
Speaking of that Purdue win, they are 1 game shy of qualifying for a bowl now for the first time since 2012. So good for Jeff Brom and what they're trying to build in Purdue. It's been a great season.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to the ACC.
Okay.
Miami 44, UVA 28. This game did end up being a bit of a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
It worked out for Miami in the end, but UVA went up 14-0 in the first quarter. In the beginning of the third quarter, it was 28-14. Kurt Benkert started something crazy like 10 for 10 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was outstanding the entire game. Definitely a bit of a hangover effect in play here for the Canes.
Yeah, he was like 18 of 19 for 284 to start. It was ridiculous. And I think the one incomplete pass was a throwaway.
Totally. He looked outstanding. I am all in on the Hoos next week at home against Virginia Tech. We'll talk about that when we do our rivalry week show. All that being said, after being in a hole, 2-touchdown hole in the second half, Miami turned it on. They scored 30 unanswered. They won by 16. 3 more pulls on the turnover chain, Dan, including one for Travis Homer, who you know is the running back. He got a fumble on a special teams play. What do you take away from a game like this if you're looking at Miami here? Take anything new away?
Yeah, if Miami is unable to, and that is an enormous if, given how good the defense and unpredictable nature of Manny Diaz's defense has been and how fast and confident they play. But if it's a game in which 2 good teams, one of which is Miami, don't turn the ball over, and the defense needs to make third down stops and the offense needs to march down the field and doesn't have short fields because of turnovers, I am exceedingly curious about what that looks like. And we'll see it against Clemson most likely, but Miami's defense certainly good enough to top Clemson and force Kelly Bryant into mistakes. But I'm curious about that because there was a certain amount of confidence that Kurt Benkert played with that better quarterbacks can now look at and say, okay, we can do that. And good for Miami for coming back. Malik Rozier, a couple of pretty bad mistakes and bad throws, underthrows. And it sort of felt like you take the good, you take the bad, and there you have Malik Rozier. And he's so dangerous on the ground where he is a net positive comfortably. But I don't know if that's going to come back to bite them against a team that can play 4 quality quarters. But as of right now, and this is all putting Miami in a top 4 microscope, because just full Miami context, the whole season's already an enormous win.
Sure.
But now that they are a top 3 team, I think it's fair to sort of scrutinize the more minute aspects of what Miami's looking like. And yesterday looked like, well, you can jump on them a little bit and you can throw on them a little bit if you get some time. And as long as you don't make mistakes and avoid, which is tough to do against this defense, you can beat them. But that's a ton of ifs.
Yeah, I don't take too much new away from this. There's no doubt that Miami's a big game team, though. And we saw that against Virginia Tech. We saw it last week against Notre Dame. I worry a little bit that when you take away that big game element, when they're at home against UVA like they were this week, or next week on the road at Pitt, sort of a meaningless game in the grand scheme of things, do they lose some of that intensity? I don't know. For a while in the UVA game, I thought they might, but it ultimately ended up working out. On Friday, they've got a road tilt against Pittsburgh. Pitt's not a great team.
No.
But you never know.
They got a pretty good third-string quarterback.
Pitt beat 2 top 5 teams a year ago in Penn State and Clemson. So who the hell knows in college football? I don't know if you caught Chris Fowler's comment about that game.
No.
The Pitt-Miami game? Did you hear that?
No, what'd he say?
Oh, he was savage on Pitt. He talked about Miami just needing to get through that road game next week up in Pittsburgh with all those yellow seats.
Not unfair.
All those yellow seats, yeah.
I think you got a point. I think this Miami team could lose to the 2016 Pitt team.
Thank you.
I think they got to watch out for Matt Canada and James Conner. You just don't know.
My only other point here is that Virginia is one of the best stories of the year in college football. You can put them right up there with Iowa State, maybe even Purdue. Just teams that were irrelevant for a long time. And I know you don't get moral victories in college football. We all understand that, but really a hell of a job by Bronco Mendenhall. Friend of the show, Bronco Mendenhall at UVA.
Oh, absolutely. What's the name of the rivalry? The Virginia Tech game? It's the battle for the Commonwealth?
The Commonwealth Cup.
The Commonwealth Cup, yeah. Okay.
All right. Miami wasn't the only team with a hangover from last week.
Fill me in.
Let's talk about Notre Dame 24, Navy 17, Dan.
Let's.
I told you not to lock up Notre Dame in this game. I warned you vocally not to take Notre Dame minus whatever in this game.
Well, they wear such cool and hip throwback uniform, inspirational. I was not a fan.
I hate the special uniforms. I know they use it as a recruiting tool all over. I get it. I don't like it. I don't have to like it. Maybe I'm an old man. Maybe I'm confused. But God, every time Notre Dame tries the alternate uniform thing, it seems like the game is closer than it should be. Okay, here we go.
They all had Rockney on the back tie. You got to give me this week.
Okay, I'll give you this week.
They have leather-inspired garbage helmets.
Somebody tweeted us that they showed a Medicare commercial during this game somewhere.
Of course they did. I actually didn't mind the shade of blue and the shade of gold and like the piping, the blue piping on the gold and the gold piping on the blue. I thought that was pretty sharp, actually. My problem was they look like Navy. It was the same shade that Navy wears. And I thought the helmets looked just like, okay, relax, guys. We get it. You used to wear leather. But game-wise itself, there's something to be said about surviving just the muck of Navy possessing the ball for 42 minutes. Like, I can imagine for Notre Dame's defense, and I would argue people watching this game, especially Notre Dame fans, it was just like getting through a marathon dinner party that you just don't want to be at. Just like you avoid the religion, you avoid the politics, you avoid like the touchy subjects of in weird family fights. You just stay out of it and eat your food, clear your plate, and drive home. That's what I came away thinking.
I'd say that's somewhat accurate. A little too close for comfort for Notre Dame because this was ugly, lethargic football on another cold and rainy day, as we saw again all throughout the college football world. You're right. Navy held the ball for 42 minutes and 42 seconds. They ran the ball 72 times, Dan. Mm-hmm. Even if you know that that's Navy's MO, that they like to run the football, you still have to admire the outright commitment to 72 rushing attempts. That's something else.
Absolutely.
I still don't trust Brandon Wimbush to make a big throw.
Okay. I don't know why you would.
Well, right. This has been sort of a thing where we've gone back and forth on it, right? He's had flashes of brilliance. We saw it a little bit in the beginning of the Michigan State game. We've seen it here and there throughout the season. There's no doubt the kid has talent. There's also no doubt that he's not a thrower first, at least not in this offense, at least not in this iteration of the Notre Dame football season. It's just not where he's at. Last week, he was one-hopping screen passes. Yesterday, he was overthrowing receivers who were 5 feet away from him, literally 5 feet away from him, on little flares out of the backfield. Brandon Wimbush needs to get better as a thrower. That would be the next step of this Notre Dame offense under Brian Kelly and Chip Long. They got to figure that out in the offseason before they're really ready to step up into prime time and maybe be a true playoff contender. But right now, if the run's not there, I'm not sure what happens. I'm very curious to see where this game goes next week against Stanford.
Oh, man. God, is that game going to be boring?
It's going to be awful. It's the 8 p.m. ABC game, too.
Oh, how is your mindset in two very distinct scenarios? How is your mind like every time Navy had like a 3rd and 3? Were you just like constantly, for the love of God, please just get a stop?
Well, it's maddening. They had the ball for 18 minutes. Notre Dame, just get the damn ball back. I don't care if you don't score, but just get the ball back.
How are you at the end on that, I guess, lateral throw?
Oh, I shrieked.
That was a great
yelled.
play call.
I was like, ah! I shrieked, audibly shrieked, as I was watching the game with friends, because that was a brilliant play call.
That was, I guess that would be the moment at the dinner party where an uncle would turn to your wife or your husband or whatever, like, whatever happened to that ex of yours, Todd? I liked him. What's he up to?
All right.
Always liked that guy.
24-17, Notre Dame escapes the midshipmen at home. Big one next week for them against the Stanford Cardinal. All right. Elsewhere in ACC play, Virginia Tech 20, Pitt 14. Pitt had a chance to win on the final play. They were down at the goal line. Virginia Tech stuffed them.
Oh, brutal.
Another case where the Tech offense was inconsistent, but the defense stepped up and helped them win.
Who is the best, and I'd say this in the context of the Pitt-Virginia Tech game, and I don't think it's the answer, but who is the best third-string quarterback of 2017? I'm being very serious. This has been a very good year for third-string quarterbacks.
I mean, there are some teams like Maryland that are on their 5th string at this point.
Yeah, you got Kyle Kempt at Iowa State. I would argue it's probably the year of Kyle Kempt.
Yeah, for sure.
Kenny Pickett had a totally nice day, right?
Yeah.
He was pretty efficient for a third-string quarterback. Trust me, as somebody who's watched a lot of backup quarterback play for Oregon, do not take for granted a solid third-stringer.
I was going to say, we're going to put Braxton Burmeister in here.
I think Skylar Thompson for Kansas State.
He was okay.
You know, Alex Denton and Jesse Ertz going down. Beats Oklahoma State, gets hurt, but has some amazing throws.
Okay.
I guess the Big 12 really probably takes home the third-string quarterback conference of the year. I'm trying to think of other examples, but I feel like we've used the phrase third string a lot this year.
The backup to the backup better than the starter.
Oh, I guess Brandon Peters?
Brandon Peters, yeah.
Good third-string
Haven't
season.
seen enough of him, but
no,
he's shown promise, yeah.
I'm going to think about this.
All right. Okay, some other courageous acts in the ACC. We had Clemson 61-3 over the Citadel. An interesting factoid here that may only interest Ty Hildenbrandt. Clemson has now won 10 games in 7 straight years. An amazing achievement for Dabo Swinney. Also, the Citadel made $300K for the loss, so good for them. We had
good for them.
Florida State 77-6 over Delaware State. We had Louisville over Syracuse 56-10, a big game. Guess who? Lamar Jackson, 381 and 4 touchdowns. He became the school's all-time yardage leader.
Mm-hmm.
We had Duke over Georgia Tech.
Good win from Duke.
Yeah, BC over UConn and Wake over NC State, Dan.
Yeah, I think BC is running the hell out of the ball. A.J. Dillon, to the surprise of nobody at this point, goes for 200. And John Hilleman, I suppose, didn't watch any of this game, but it appears John Hilleman had a very nice day for the BC Eagles. So there's that.
And North Carolina, I don't want to forget North Carolina. They won 65-10 over Western Carolina. Congratulations.
Take that, Western Carolina. Ha!
Let's go to the Big 12, the third-string quarterback conference of the year. This was really the only upset. We had K-State 45, Oklahoma State 40. Now, look, you and I were texting about this game as well. On the Wednesday show, we talked about the Jose Mesa ramifications, the Jose Mesa complex going on at Oklahoma State. If Jose Mesa isn't your cup of tea, maybe pick out another unreliable baseball closer because the analogy truly fits.
Post Royds Gagne, it's rough.
K-State was a 19.5-point dog in this game, Dan. And they have questions at quarterback. It seemed like a reasonable point spread, but then Bill Snyder pulls the rabbit out of the hat. His defense was able to keep Oklahoma State out of sync for most of the football game. Skylar Thompson, who you mentioned, the freshman quarterback filling in for Jesse Ertz and Alex Delton, he looked pretty good, served the part here. Oklahoma State almost came back. They were down big. They almost came back and won this football game.
It's unfortunate for Oklahoma State because it just feels like another Oklahoma State season, which 98% of college football would happily take. And they're just, for all of the progress of the offense at times, defensively, they've been spotty and allowing too much, making too many mistakes on offense early on in games. So it's tricky, but good for Kansas State. They almost give this game away. That to me was the bad close.
Yeah.
They almost give this game away. A nice job by Oklahoma State coming back. So I guess it would be like, the idea of Jose Mesa, a third of an inning, 5 earned runs, but the rest of the bullpen has the flu. So keep going, buddy. Byron Pringle, a great nationally underrated receiver at this point. Incredibly consistent for Kansas State. Found the end zone how many times? A couple times, I think. And just there hasn't really been a defense that's been able to consistently stop him in that conference. So cool to see.
Before we talk about the other Oklahoma school and the other Kansas school, let's talk to you about Net 10 Wireless, Dan.
Let's.
Net 10 Wireless always gives you access to the latest scores and highlights right on your smartphone. They give you a flexible choice of plans, great nationwide coverage. It's on one of America's largest and most dependable networks. There's never been a better time to switch because for a limited time, you can get double data for life, starting as low as $35. What this means is you get unlimited talk, unlimited text, and the first 4 gigabytes of high-speed data, then 2G for just $35. Or you can bump it up to 20 gig of high-speed data, then 2G for just $60. A real game changer here. You can pick the phone and the plan that fits your needs. Now with the added lifetime value of double data, no contracts, no hidden fees, nothing like that. Just a really good deal. Go to net10wireless.com. That's NET, the number 10, wireless.com to reference all the terms, all the restrictions of service, everything you need to know to get started. But check out Double Data for Life today. Truly a game changer, a good deal if you are in the market to maybe switch it up and go with a different carrier. Net 10 Wireless.
Good call.
All right, let's go on over to Oklahoma 41, Kansas 3. Dan, we need to talk here.
Please.
The Kansas game plan, as I understand it, had one objective yesterday, and that was to troll Baker Mayfield.
And hurt Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I don't think they drew up any plays, Dan. They just wanted to piss off Baker Mayfield and hurt him if they could. To which end I would say they were somewhat successful because it started right from the jump. They refused to shake his hand during the coin toss.
Indeed.
Interesting decision. Then we had a lot of jawing during the game. At one point, it did look like someone from Kansas took a cheap shot at Baker's throwing shoulder. And as you might expect, Baker did not react favorably to this.
No.
He responded like the mature 50-year senior that he is by grabbing his crotch and yelling, F you. What else do we got here? By telling Kansas fans in attendance that they should stick to basketball, which is a personal favorite of mine.
I like that.
I believe he saw at one point that he may have challenged the entire Kansas bench to a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I appreciate the evil genius behind the Kansas game plan here.
Yeah.
Me, as someone who took the Tom Rinaldi tearjerkers in my fantasy things, I appreciate a little bit of evil genius. Because everyone's got the buddy who runs his mouth off, runs a little hot, and you think maybe you could throw off his game if you just commit early to getting in his head.
Mm-hmm.
There is a point, though, where I think it extends beyond the trash talk and just turns into pure trash. And I think that's where Kansas went with this.
Right.
You know, it's cool to tell your friend that he sucks at golf or basketball or whatever. It's not cool to tell him that his girlfriend is ugly and that you hope he dies alone.
Did you learn this?
Did I learn this
from personal experience?
No, I've never told a friend that his girlfriend's ugly and that I hope he dies alone.
Okay. Wow. It's just very specific, Ty.
I thought a lot about this last night at midnight when I was typing up my notes here. And so my only point, is that Kansas had a plan. It wasn't entirely a bad plan until they got a little bit over the top with it, at which point it just turned into poor sportsmanship.
This is not great. It's not a great look for Baker Mayfield. I want to get that out just first of all ahead of
But it's not a great look for him. Everyone sort of knows that he can be a bit of a punk here and there, but I don't fully fault him because most of us would have reacted the same way. I don't understand the crotch grab. That's never been a Ty Hildebrand favorite, but I understand dropping 4-letter words. I understand running a little hot after it's apparent that they don't like you. They're out to try and hurt you. I get it from that standpoint.
So, first of all, I think you saying that's a little bit disingenuous because at the national championship every year, you walk by each and every radio show, grab your crotch,
I do.
And yell F you. That's something that people now understand in this industry.
Right.
Second of all, if we suddenly shift the prism and shift the lens, whatever, and start looking at Baker Mayfield like college football's Rick Vaughn, a.k.a. Wild Thing.
Sure.
It makes a little bit of sense.
It really does.
Like if every single time Baker Mayfield came off the field, like a bunch of people around the tunnel, like especially if the game's in Norman, were like, I love you, Wild Thing. You'd be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense with Baker Mayfield. So I say we just view him through like if he shaved the Rick Vaughn like neck triangles, whatever he needs
to get the jean jacket back from his girlfriend Nikki's apartment, and then he's all set.
Yeah, if he had a jean jacket with cutoff sleeves, came out onto the field on the back of a motorcycle or something.
The horn rim glasses.
If he had the horn rim glasses, maybe come out with like on a Harley behind the Sooner Schooner, and like Too Wild Thing. It would be the most on brand way to sort of flip the script of like Baker Mayfield's immature and he's just like, hell yeah, I am. And he's just like crushing beers on his head at halftime. I'd be all in.
Just a full on heel turn.
Rebrand. Absolutely.
I'd be totally cool with that.
So can we just refer to Baker Mayfield as Wild Thing moving forward?
It's unfortunate that we thought of this in week 12. We could have been running with this for 12 full weeks now.
Well, he had to give us 12 weeks of Wild Thing.
Okay. Wild Thing Baker Mayfield. I love it.
Yeah.
What was the score? 41-3. Oklahoma probably could have scored 90 in this game.
Yeah.
If Lincoln Riley let him go for it. But Kansas is 1-10. Been a bad year.
Indeed they are.
TCU 27, Texas Tech 3. Dan, I'm going to ask the boys in the truck to cue up some appropriate music.
Oh.
Would you mind reading off Texas Tech's offensive drives in this football game?
Oh, wow. I forgot to do it during Wisconsin, Michigan, but that's what everybody expected. So here it is. Texas Tech driving down the field. Field goal, punt, punt, missed field goal, punt, 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 missed field goal, fumble, interception, downs. Downs. There was only one downs there at the end, but I want to emphasize 10 plays, 49 yards, downs.
They scored on their first drive. That's how they got the 3. After that, they were totally shut out. TCU 27-3. Sean Robinson, the true freshman from Texas, got the start in place of Kenny Hill, who didn't make the trip.
Right.
He made a difference with his legs in this game. Had 84 rushing yards, not so much through the air. Not a great passing effort, but TCU gets the W. Is Cliff Kingsbury done?
To me, it's a toss-up. So who do they finish the season with?
They got a game next week against Texas.
They finished so if they're able to pull it off against Texas, who looked pretty good against West Virginia, albeit without Will Greer, we'll get to that momentarily. If they're able to pull that win out in Austin and make a bowl game, I think there's an okay chance that he hangs around. But with how they started the year, beating, Eastern Washington's nothing, at this point to sort of put on a resume, but beating an Arizona State team, beating Houston, who, subsequently does not look as impressive as we thought they might be this year, and beating Kansas and Baylor, and not really getting above the lowest tier in the Big 12 in terms of wins. I don't know if there's enough progress. I don't know what his buyout situation is. I don't know how his interpersonal dealings are with the administration, but in terms of pure performance, it's just no improvement.
Yeah, it feels like they're treading water. Every season is exactly the same.
Especially when you constantly put out pretty good offenses, but can't translate that into wins. It's just, I don't know. The expectation at Texas Tech, the expectation in Lubbock should be consistently going to bowl games. And they're not.
They're not. Well, we'll see what they do next week against Texas. Texas, the Longhorns, they were on the road at West Virginia and won 28-14. Good to see Sam Ehlinger out there. Looked good both through the air and on the ground. Good to see Connor Williams back from injury for the Longhorns.
Mm-hmm.
And sad to see that Big Bill Greer went down with a broken finger on his throwing hand.
On a fumble, too.
Yeah, on a fumble.
Ended up in a touchback.
He's going to have surgery on it. They're saying he'll be back in time for West Virginia's bowl game, wherever that ends up being. So that's at least a good thing. It also meant that we got to see the Chris Chugunov experience
that sounds right.
for the Mountaineers. He was not able to generate a whole lot of offense. Again, your final score here, Texas 28, West Virginia 14.
A very nice win, I would say, for Texas. That got them to bowl eligibility, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. That was their 6th win. They have an opportunity, obviously, now against Texas Tech to go 7-5. I think the defense week over week throughout the season improved to the point where I think they're legitimately good. Offensively, a number of questions. I have trouble picturing what this offense is going to look like when they're fully operating to full capacity. I don't know what the full-on identity is, but there's time. It was Tom Herman's first year. He got him to a bowl. Charlie Strong didn't. So I will reserve judgment to see what their offense looks like next year, but to go to Morgantown and win by a couple touchdowns and defensively look as good as they have, I'm encouraged.
And finally, in Big 12 country, we had Iowa State 23, Baylor 13. It was Iowa State's 7th win. They will have a crack at 8-4 when they continue the next great chapter. I believe the 101st consecutive meeting next week against Kansas State in their rivalry.
Could have, depending on Skylar Thompson's health, could have 2 third-string quarterbacks, if not a 4th string for Kansas State, if none of the other quarterbacks are good to go. And Iowa State has a pretty good shot, albeit they're on the road, right, at Kansas State?
On the road, yeah.
They have a good shot of going 8-4, possibly winning a 9th with the bowl game. That is incredible. Zeb Nolan played yesterday for Iowa State and was totally good. David Montgomery, another workhorse effort. Cool to see.
And in the Pac-12, we had USC 28, UCLA 23. This might have been the best that UCLA looked on defense all year. Yeah. I don't know where it came from. Clearly, they were up for the challenge in a big rivalry game where, of course, you need to throw out the records, right? We know that.
Always.
So I don't know if they were just preparing all year for this one game or what the deal was, but they were able to keep, for the most part, USC's run game in check. And when I say that, Ronald Jones still had 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. The problem for Jim Mora is that UCLA is not a finished product. And it's never been a finished product under his tutelage. They were okay on the ground yesterday and definitely better on defense. But let's be honest here. It's all on Josh Rosen. If they're going to win a game, and he tried, God bless him, he tried with another game over 400 yards. It's all been in a losing effort. They got to find some way if Jim Mora is going to stay put.
Well, on that note, Ty, why don't you play the breaking news sound?
Oh, no. We have breaking news.
Boop, 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 boop. So Jim Mora is out at UCLA.
Wow.
And this makes it just savage. It's his birthday.
Oh, man.
But after not really getting UCLA to the point at which they'd imagined their program would be, after a few years under Mora, he has been relieved of his duties. That is UCLA's official word. UCLA's job, the UCLA job in general, will command a lot of interest from a lot of big names from, I think, all over the place, because a lot of people view the UCLA job as not necessarily a sleeping giant, but a sleeping pseudo giant, which is pretty impressive in college football. So the UCLA job is open, and that is a high profile one. And just add them to the list of now with Florida and Tennessee and what we assume to be Nebraska, perhaps Arkansas, Ole Miss. It's going to be a very, very heavy coaching carousel season. So the UCLA job is open, and I imagine some big names will be interested.
I guess not that big of a surprise. We kind of knew things were going sideways at UCLA. We will talk much, much more about that, I'm sure, on future shows. Moving on, Stanford 17, Cal 14, the big rivalry game. Statistically speaking, in this football game, it was dead even. Mm-hmm. And that's not just a figure of speech. Pull up the box score and take a look at this game if you're bored. The numbers are virtually identical for both teams here, right down to them both being 6 of 12 on third downs. This was an even contest here, Dan.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And Stanford had that key fourth down conversion late. I think it was with Cameron Scarlett, because Bryce Love was again hobbled. He set a record, I think, for 50-plus yard runs in a season, which is just ridiculous. But yeah, it seemed like Cal was going to take control of the game. And, that I think it was in the first half, that doinked field goal really ended up mattering a lot. But yeah, Cal ran the ball super well against Stanford. It was cool to see in a rivalry game. Not all that difficult to go into Palo Alto and win, just in terms of atmosphere. But hey, now Stanford has a good shot to end up in that title game, like you mentioned.
Washington 33, Utah 30. This was a true Pac-12 after dark kind of game.
Man, 10 points in the last minute.
10 points in the last minute. A crazy finish. Washington comes from behind to knock off Utah. Jake Browning looked good at crunch time. He needed a fourth down conversion to sort of get rolling and get some momentum behind him, but he did come through in the clutch. The only other thing that I'll add here, Utah remains a giant mystery for me.
Yeah.
A huge mystery. Every year, a huge mystery. I just cannot figure them out. They're back home next week against Colorado in a battle between 2, 5, and 6 teams, so bowl eligibility is going to be on the line. I don't know what to make of Utah. I'm a little unclear as to what to make of Washington as well at this point, Dan.
Yeah, I think Utah has the reputation of always being pretty good, and if you are showing cracks, they can take advantage. This year, they just showed too many of their own cracks. I mean, the Tyler Huntley injury didn't help, and he was a little slow to come back even when he was playing for the Utes. And Washington, I think injuries on defense, teams were able to take advantage, like Utah was, of a pretty young and new secondary. I know the safeties are pretty good. Taylor Rapp is, a big-time playmaker, but corner-wise, they're still getting healthier there, and they lost a ton of talent in the secondary last year. Azim Victor, who was thought to be their best returning linebacker, he was suspended indefinitely. And so just a lot of attrition on Washington's defense, and no John Ross takes away Jake Browning's enormous weapon from last year. And they've struggled just everywhere to be consistent. I think outside of the running game, but they struggled with, on the ground yesterday against Utah. Myles Gaskin didn't do all that much. And it's funny when a team loses closely to Utah, which is pretty rare because, man, Utah in close games has not been good recently, or just survives Utah. Fans are very quick to be like, hey, listen, record doesn't tell the full story. Utah is year in and year out. They're tough. but Utah's not great this year. They're fine. They look like they'll make a bowl. Washington looks like a top 20 team, but at this point, it's hard to say that they belong in any sort of conference championship or even national spotlight. So,
agreed.
Good for Utah. Washington has Chris Peterson and a ton of talent, and the long-term prognosis for UW should be very high. Very good.
Oregon 48, Arizona 28. Justin Herbert finally able to get back at it after getting hurt earlier in the year. For the most part, a very successful first game back. He had a long touchdown run for Oregon's first score of the day. He had a long touchdown pass in the second quarter. I don't know. I mean, you probably watched the game more intently than I did. I thought he looked fine. More importantly, Dan, and this cannot be underscored enough.
Please.
Looked a little better than Braxton Burmeister.
Oh, my God. Just maybe by the thinnest of margins. I'm going to try not to make fun of a true freshman who very much struggled in the offense and thrust into a position he was not ready for. But no, I thought Justin Herbert looked excellent. He did not show really any jitters. He had a 40-yard run for a touchdown. Early on, they have like a reverse flea flicker type play that goes for 50 and sets up a touchdown at the goal line. Royce Freeman and Tony Brooks-James are both good. Arguably, Tony Brooks-James may have been better. Shows a little bit more burst. What do you call him? Tony Brooks Flames?
Tony Brooks Flames, thank you.
Tony Brooks Flames, of course. No, the big thing in this game was defensively. How many yards did Khalil Tate run for?
I believe that would be 32.
It was 32 yards. Now, there's always a possibility that somebody like Khalil Tate came into this game a little bit nicked up, a little hesitant, wasn't able to put weight on something. I don't know. Maybe he was 100%. I don't know. But even Khalil Tate, not 100%, was completely held down by this Oregon defense. They tackled super well on the perimeter. They made him give the ball off on every single read type play. And for the most part, this Oregon defense came to play. I know they gave up 28, but I don't know if they gave up much in the second half. I think just a touchdown in the second half. So a really nice defensive effort against a pretty good team in Arizona. And Oregon is now eligible for a bowl. They will beat Oregon State. I feel confident in saying that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And they will finish 7-5 in a what could have been type year if Justin Herbert were healthy against, say, UCLA and Washington State, perhaps. So a really nice day for Oregon, and good to have a starting quarterback back.
It's very good. I would also like to add more about the Oregon defense because it's quietly been a very good story. They have improved over where they were a year ago. That's not saying a whole lot because they were dreadful a year ago, but they clearly have gotten better. Eugene, Oregon, Dan, not necessarily known as the graveyard for dark horse Heisman candidates, but
sure,
in holding Khalil Tate down the way they did, I think all the little Tatumaniacs out there are going to have to find something else to root for. I don't think it's happening for Khalil.
I am hopeful that Willie Taggart and this coaching staff are long for Eugene.
Okay. And finally, in the Pac-12, we had ASU 40, Oregon State 24. Finally, in the SEC, Alabama 56, Mercer 0, Auburn 42, Louisiana Monroe 14.
Not a ton to take away. Dylan Moses had a nice day for Alabama, starting at a middle linebacker as a true freshman.
You stole my thunder. I was going there with it. Dylan Moses, the blue chip freshman. We all know about some of the woes that Alabama has in the linebacking core due to injury. Dylan Moses stepping in, led the game, 11 tackles, had 4 tackles for loss, 1 interception. Granted, it was just Mercer, but still good to see him stepping in, making a positive contribution.
Yeah, not a lot of people know this about Dylan Moses, Ty, but he committed to play quarterback for Lane Kiffin in 1999. So just to see how far he's come, it's been a treat.
The big game will be next week, the Iron Bowl, which we will preview a little bit earlier in this week. We'll talk about that later. What else we got here? Georgia 42, Kentucky 13, a big collective day for Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. 27 carries, 238 yards, and 5 touchdowns, Dan.
Yeah, slow start for the Georgia offense and Jake Fromm, couple mistakes, but got their act together and just ran straight at, through, around, under, over Kentucky and distance themselves.
Mississippi State 28, Arkansas 21. Dan, Arkansas led. They led until about 4 minutes left. I was thinking November.
Borderline erotic. Borderline erotic.
Hey, we got to play these sounds while we can.
Yeah. We have to enjoy November while it lasts.
Arkansas led until late in this game. That's when Nick Fitzgerald hit Reginald Todd on a 37-yard touchdown pass, which tied it at 21-21. Nick Fitz followed with another touchdown pass, this one with just 17 seconds left. That gave the... right here. I wrote Wildcats. They're not the Wildcats.
Nope.
That gave the Bulldogs a tough road win here in Fayetteville. 28-21 was your final. I think the bigger story is still Jeff Long getting let go earlier in the week and what ramifications that might have long-term on the Arkansas program.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's probably some sort of future-looking disagreement about the direction of the program and who they perhaps might hire, because it was apparent when Jeff Long was there that Brett Bielema would probably not survive to coach next year. And now there's all sorts of rumors about Gus Malzahn, and who knows? But now Jeff Long is just a playoff committee member.
All right. LSU 30, Tennessee 10. Allow me to put on my David Caruso sunglasses here for a second.
Please.
Dan, when it rains, it pours.
Okay.
That was my little bit that I had worked up for this game. We had a big time monsoon game in Knoxville. I don't know how much of this game you watched, but holy cow, did it rain.
Yeah, not a ton. Good win for LSU to survive the elements and come away with a comfortable win. Tennessee probably didn't have any sort of expectations coming into this game, and Guarantano was all right, but yeah, good win for LSU. Survive and go on to Texas A&M next week.
Texas A&M 31, Ole Miss 24. This is a good game.
I enjoyed it.
This is a good game. A&M took Jordan Ta'amu out of rhythm. They got after him all game. They forced a couple mistakes. Their first road win in November in 2 years for A&M.
Takes you back.
It does. They'll get a chance to do it again next week on the road, as you mentioned, against LSU. That one's in Death Valley at night, so it'll be a tough environment, to say the least. But a fun game, a good win for A&M.
Yeah, and Nick Starkel has been pretty good since he came back. Gives them an element through the air that I don't think they necessarily had the first half of the year. Damian Ratley and Christian Kirk both had very nice days.
And finally, we had South Carolina 31, Wofford 10, and Missouri 45, Vanderbilt 17. Let's take a knee here and talk about Missouri for a second.
Let's.
Started the year 1-5. Barry Odom gave that impassioned, I don't know if it was a post-game talk, whatever it was, some press conference to the media about how he's the guy to turn it around. Mm-hmm. They steadied the ship. They ripped off 5 in a row. They're 6-5. They've qualified for a bowl. They've got Arkansas next week, which could very easily make it a 7-5 season. Meanwhile, the run game's been pretty good. Drew Lock, 3 more touchdown passes. He has 38 on the year. If he gets to 40, he will be the 39th player in the history of college football to throw for 40 touchdowns in a season.
Wow. Yeah, not the most accurate day against the Vandy defense, but Drew Lock, I would argue, even in a not terrific division, probably one of the 15 or 20 best quarterbacks of the year.
Easily.
Yeah.
And speaking of quarterbacks, Florida 36, UAB 7.
Yeah, Eddie Pinheiro, 5 field goals.
5 field goals. That's all I got, man. What else do we got here? Anything?
Dude, Ty, we always have so much. Well, first of all, did you see the Colgate Patriot League Championship shirts? Pretty great.
Yeah, Lehigh beat Lafayette 38-31.
That was closer than the experts predicted, Ty.
Oh, definitely.
I think they came in with the same record in conference. Yeah, there's not a lot to say about the Pat League, but yeah, Fresno with another nice win. They're going to meet Boise in as we mentioned, the Mountain West Championship game in 2 weeks, a week after they just played Boise during the regular season. So it was a Wyoming team, I believe, without Josh Allen. He was injured and did not play for the Cowboys, and sort of in terms of what they were expecting, kind of a lost year for Wyoming. Colorado State, very quietly just putting points on everybody. Boise State, as we've alluded to in previous weeks, after that debacle against Virginia, they just haven't lost in the Mountain West. So they could be a lurking team if something were to happen. I don't know, the UCF game is ugly or whatever for a group of 5 shot. I don't think it's too late. Northern Illinois, a nice win. They go to 6-1 in the MAC, and that includes, or not the MAC part, but their season includes a win over Nebraska, which is certainly something that they can hang their hat on, sort of. Houston lost, Ty.
I saw that.
Houston, not a great year for Major Applewhite in his first year. UCF, a huge win over Temple, and I guess a kind of a trap spot, right?
A little bit. Temple's been pretty bad this year, though.
They're not great. They've improved throughout the course of the year. I think they're 5-6 now, so they were 5-5 coming in. But a week before, a short week and a game against USF, who won during the week, either Thursday or Friday night. A good defense for USF and a good defensive performance. Tulane was the team that beat Houston, by the way. A nice improved year. I'm trying to see anyone else that stood out to me. Huge day. Did you see? You probably didn't watch much of this game. You maybe caught a few minutes here and there, but the North Texas Army game.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many yards. Mason Fine. So they will be playing FAU, who won the Shula Cup in the Conference USA Championship game. So there's that. That feels like it's going to be a fun shootouty points type game. Outside of that, I don't have much, Ty.
Do we have Doodle Alerts?
Colgate is your Patriot League champion.
Yeah, let's do Doodle Alerts.
Okay.
Give it to me.
I've got so many dudes. Rashad Penny had a ridiculous all-purpose day and a winning effort for San Diego State. I think both on the ground and in the return game, he had 400 and some odd yards. Just continues his ridiculous run. A.J. Dillon for BC goes for 200. Mason Fine, North Texas quarterback, throws a bajillion yards for the Mean Green. Ahmad Bradshaw in that very same game for Army runs for a ton of yardage. He has been consistently unbelievably productive. Justin Jackson, the Northwestern running back, has been there forever and is putting up forever-type yards and records, and another good game against Minnesota. Connor Williams, the Texas starting left tackle, an NFL-type talent, not only comes back, did you see him dance?
I did.
He danced, and for that reason, he is but a dude. Eddie Pinheiro, the kicker for Florida, Mr. Offense in Gainesville. Jordan Lastly has had a dude season, as we mentioned, had another dude game for the Bruins against USC. Shaquem Griffin, who, if you haven't read Andy Staples' feature about him, the UCF linebacker, who happens to have one hand. It very much does not define him because he wrecks shop for UCF defensively. He had another huge game against Temple. Byron Pringle, who we mentioned, has had a consistently good year. Ross Blacklock led a sterling defensive effort for TCU, their defensive tackle. Sutton Smith made every single play for Northern Illinois in that great defense and now leads the nation in sacks and tackles for loss. Tyrell Crosby, who decided to come back for his senior year for Oregon, starting left tackle, completely drove Arizona defenders into the ground and led the way for 353 rushing yards. Josh Rosen, of course, we mentioned. Derek Tucker for Texas A&M, all over the field for the Aggies. The safety was Kurt Bankert for Virginia, Malik Williams for Louisville. It was not just a Lamar Jackson show. He was ridiculous. And mostly because he had a great day, but also because I enjoy his name very much. Nevada's Brendan O'Leary Orange caught a bajillion passes for a bajillion yards. Those are your dudes.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone for tweeting those in, and thank you to the dudes themselves for giving us something to be excited about in college football week 12. Week 13, as you know, is rivalry week.
What do you got to do?
You got to throw out all the records. Not going to play the sound again. I don't want to wear it out. We're going to play it plenty of times, I'm sure, when we get to our Week 13 preview. But where I'm going with this is because it is Thanksgiving week. We always have a bit of a conundrum, like when do we want to put the show out? We want to give people enough of an opportunity to listen to our Week 12 recap before putting out the Week 13 preview. So what we're going to do, I believe, record on Monday night. We'll publish the show on Tuesday morning so that people have a chance to, listen to this show and then download and imbibe our other show, whether they're in the bird on the way to visit family and friends in another state, city, or country. Maybe they're just on a long car ride over to grandma's house.
Maybe you're just cooking some stuffing up and want to be entertained.
Yeah, we want to make sure that everybody is well equipped with plenty of verbal on their podcast application so that they can listen and get all their fixins of college football here.
Here's what you have to look forward to, Ty. You got the Egg Bowl.
Yep.
You've got clear lock Miami losing to Pitt on Friday. I don't know what that's a nooner on Friday. You have the huge USF UCF game. I think that's an ABC game.
The war on I-4.
Yeah. You got the Iron Bowl on Saturday, Clemson, South Carolina, the battle for the Palmetto State. I don't know if that'll be crazy, but it's at South Carolina, so I think it's certainly worth watching.
Yep.
Notre Dame, Stanford, if you must. Georgia, Georgia Tech always seems a little bit tricky for the Dogs, so I would not watch that game. Ohio State, Michigan might not be great, but you know what? It's Ohio State, Michigan, and you got to throw those records out. You got Apple Cup with major implications.
The old Oaken Bucket.
The old Oaken Bucket, Ty. Never overlook the old Oaken Bucket. So, yeah, got 2 new coaches in that matchup. It'll be interesting. It'll be fun. It'll be new.
A lot going on next week, so we hope you'll stay with us. Don't forget you can subscribe to the show for free. Anywhere you can find podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Don't forget to check out the subreddit as well if you're interested at reddit.com/r/solidverbal, a community by verballers for verballers. And finally, I promise I'll quit my little spiel after this. You can buy Solid Verbal t-shirts now until November 21st. Those shirts will be on sale through our friends over at Cotton Bureau. We've posted the link countless times now. We'll continue posting it. Again, Tuesday's the last day, if you're interested.
Yes.
Tuesday's the last day.
Say, as of the time of this recording, 2 days, 7 hours, 41 minutes, and 53 seconds. So if you want one of the new designs, I suggest you go to Cotton Bureau and look up Solid Verbal. And the older design from earlier this year, the radio design, that is available for a little while longer. That is the bonus sale. So that is available. I'm seeing right now for another... Well, it's not loading, Ty, but it's available for, it looks like another couple weeks. So if you want the new design, 2 days. You want the older one, a couple weeks.
Yeah, so make sure you get those shirts. Actually, we should do a bit of a hybrid secret verbal today.
Yeah, we have a couple to give away, don't we?
I want to do something different.
Okay.
I don't want to do the traditional secret verbal, where we throw out a word or an image or a target and say, hey, go out there and spam them. I don't want to do that. Why don't we give away some free shirts to people who actually listen to this show?
Yeah, so we have an offer code for a free shirt of the new green one and an offer code for the classic throwback one.
El Clásico.
So how do you suppose we should give these away?
Woo! Okay. I think we should probably do some sort of like email essay contest.
Wow.
Yeah, I want people to work for it.
How about this? You have to email us, and you can say this is a no-go, but email us with the most exotic, not necessarily location, but some sort of combination of location and situation.
Where are you going with this?
Where you listen to this. I'm not talking about like in the bedroom time.
I didn't know if you were talking about sexy time, just had to make sure.
But it helps if you do.
Okay. Okay.
No, just give us some story of either how you discovered the show and subsequently listen. Yeah, something interesting about your listening routine or some sort of far-fetched, unusual place or situation in which you've listened.
It's got to be through email, and it's got to be solidverbal@gmail.com.
Yes.
If you're interested, send in your stories, and we'll give it a couple days, and we'll pick out our favorites.
Could be G-rated. Could be NC-17.
Never know.
Who's to say?
Never know. All right. You know the drill. solidverbal@gmail.com.
And men's and women's sizes available, by the way.
Men's and women's sizes are available. There you go. Okay.
That's all I got.
Dan, fun show. I'll talk to you tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
We're going to record this again.
Mm-hmm. We will, I guess, speak with you soon.
On that note, for that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hillenbrand, thanks again for bearing with us. We'll talk to you soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.